space twisted and tore apart 5 light minutes from the gentle current. 5 human ships burst from hyperspace in flashes of brilliant light. They were not large vessels by galactic standards, but they moved with a purpose that made them seem dangerous. The lead ship was the Retribution's Edge, a heavy cruiser built for long-range patrol. Captain Sarah Chen stood on her bridge, studying the tactical display that showed the Korthak fleet surrounding the Zephyrian vessel. Her dark eyes were calm, but her crew could feel the anger radiating from her small frame. 47 ships, reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson from the weapons station. 12 battleships, 20 cruisers, 15 frigates. They have us outgunned about 20-1. I can do math, Jackson, Chen replied. She opened a channel to her small fleet. All ships, this is Retribution's Edge. We have civilians under attack. Standard rescue protocol. Protect the refugee ship at all costs. Commander Torres of the Steel Resolve came back over the comm. Captain, those are not good odds. Maybe we should call for backup first? Those people do not have time for backup, Chen said. We go in now. The human ships accelerated toward the Korthak fleet. They were moving fast, much faster than most species flew their ships. The Korthaks noticed them immediately. General Vextar appeared on Chen's main screen, his massive form filling the display. Unknown vessels, you are interfering with Dominion business. Leave immediately or be destroyed. Chen looked at the Korthak general for a long moment. She was small compared to him, barely half his size. Her ship was tiny next to his battleship. By every logical measure, she should have been afraid. Instead, she smiled. It was not a nice smile. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Federation Navy. You are attacking civilians. Stand down and withdraw or we will make you. Vextar stared at her. In his years of raiding, he had never heard such words from someone so obviously outmatched. You have 5 ships against my fleet. Are you insane? Probably, Chen admitted. But we do not abandon people who need help. This is your final warning. Vextar's laughter filled the bridge. Humans. I have heard rumors about your species. They say you come from a death world. Let me show you what real death looks like. The transmission ended. Vextar turned to his weapons officer. Destroy the human ships. All of them. Make it quick. But Captain Chen was already moving. All ships execute attack pattern Delta. Jackson, target their command ship. Do not hold back. The human ships spread out and accelerated directly toward the Korthak fleet. From the gentle current, Captain Lyrian watched in amazement as 5 small ships charged into the middle of 47 enemy vessels. Are they trying to get themselves killed? Asked First Harmony Teln. I think, Lyrian said slowly, they are trying to save us. The humans opened fire first. Their weapons were not as powerful as Korthak guns, but they fired them with a precision that surprised the raiders. The Retribution's Edge put 3 direct hits on Vextar's command ship before the Korthaks could respond. The return fire was massive. Energy beams and missiles filled space around the human ships. But the humans did not try to run or hide. Instead, they flew straight into the weapons fire, dodging and weaving like pilots who had no fear of death. The frigate Daring took a direct hit from a Korthak battleship. Its port side exploded in a ball of fire and atmosphere. But instead of retreating, Captain Williams flew his damaged ship directly at the battleship that had hit him. Daring to fleet, Williams' voice came over the comm, calm despite the fact that his ship was falling apart around him. I am going to ram that big bastard. Tell my wife I love her. Williams, no, Chen shouted. Eject your crew. Already done, Captain. See you on the other side. The Daring smashed into the Korthak battleship at full speed. Both ships disappeared in an explosion that lit up space for thousands of kilometers. The shockwave damaged 3 other Korthak vessels. On the gentle current, the Zephyrians watched in silent horror. They had never seen anyone sacrifice themselves for strangers. It went against everything they understood about survival and self-preservation. Why? Teln whispered. Why would they do that? Lyrian did not have an answer, but she was beginning to understand that humans were very different from other species. The remaining human ships continued their attack. The destroyer Vengeance lost its engines to Korthak fire, but its captain used the ship's remaining thrusters to position himself between the raiders and the refugee ship. The Vengeance died under concentrated fire, but it took 2 Korthak cruisers with it. Chen watched her ships die one by one, but she did not order a retreat. Instead, she pushed the Retribution's Edge harder, diving through the Korthak formation like a missile. Her weapons tore holes in enemy ships as she passed. "Captain," Jackson called out as alarms blared across the bridge. "We have lost main shields. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7. We cannot take much more of this." "Then we better make it count," Chen replied. She opened a channel to the entire Korthak fleet. "General Vextar, I want you to listen very carefully. You came here to attack helpless civilians. You thought it would be easy. But you made one mistake." "What mistake?" Vextar snarled. "You hurt people under our protection," Chen said, "and we take that personally." The Retribution's Edge fired every weapon it had at once. The massive energy discharge overloaded the ship's power systems, but it also punched straight through the shields of Vextar's command ship. The Korthak general's bridge exploded around him. Chen's ship went dark, drifting powerless through space. But her sacrifice had accomplished something important. The Korthak fleet, which had seemed invincible minutes before, was now scattered and confused. They had lost their command ship and several other vessels to just 5 human ships. From the safety of the gentle current, Lyrian watched the human ships die. 4 were completely destroyed. The 5th was dead in space, probably with no survivors. The humans had accomplished nothing except to give the Zephyrians a few more minutes of life. But those minutes had shown her something she had never seen before. A species that would die for strangers. People who valued the lives of others more than their own survival. The Korthak fleet regrouped and prepared to finish both the refugees and the remaining human ship. But as they moved forward, space began to twist again at the edge of the system. More ships were coming. General Vextar, bleeding from cuts on his face, stared at the new arrivals and felt something he had not experienced in years. Fear. Because if 5 human ships were willing to die for strangers, what would 20 human ships do? He was about to find out. The gentle current drifted through the empty darkness between stars. Its crystal hull caught the distant light of nearby suns and scattered it into beautiful rainbows across its surface. Inside the massive vessel, millions of Zephyrians moved through corridors that hummed with their people's natural music. The sound was peaceful, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Captain Lyrian stood in the command center, her crystalline form glowing softly with contentment. This was the largest evacuation ship her people had ever built. Every Zephyrian aboard had lost their home when their son began to die. Now they traveled to New Haven, a planet on the other side of the galaxy where they could start again. The journey would take 3 more months. Lyrian was not worried. The Zephyrians had been traveling through space for thousands of years without war. Most species in the galaxy respected their peaceful ways. They were healers and teachers, not fighters. Their weapons were designed only to disable, never to kill. "Captain," called First Harmony Teln from his station, "I am detecting ships approaching from the outer system. They are moving very fast." Lyrian's crystals dimmed slightly. Ships that moved fast in empty space usually meant trouble. "Can you identify them?" Teln's harmonics shifted to a worried tone. "The energy signatures are Korthak, Captain. A full war fleet. They are not responding to our peace frequency." A chill ran through Lyrian's core. The Korthak Dominion was known throughout the galaxy as raiders and slavers. They attacked weak targets and took whatever they wanted. Zephyrian civilians would be valuable slaves because of their healing abilities. "How many ships?" Lyrian asked. 47 vessels, Captain, including 12 battleships." Teln's voice carried fear now. "They will reach us in 6 minutes." Lyrian felt her crystals grow cold. The gentle current had only basic shields and no real weapons. It was built to carry refugees, not fight wars. Even their escort ships carried only light defensive systems. "Send a message on all frequencies," Lyrian ordered. "Tell them we are a civilian vessel carrying refugees. We have no military value." But even as she spoke, Lyrian knew it would not matter. The Korthak did not care about civilians. They saw weakness and wanted to exploit it. Minutes later, the Korthak fleet surrounded them. The lead ship was massive, covered in weapon ports and armor plating. Its captain appeared on their main screen. General Vextar was a typical Korthak, tall, heavily muscled, with thick gray skin and small black eyes that showed no mercy. "Zephyrian vessel," Vextar growled in basic galactic trade language. "You will shut down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Your people will serve the Dominion now." "We are refugees," Lyrian replied, keeping her voice steady. "We have done nothing to harm your people. Please let us continue our journey in peace." Vextar laughed, a harsh sound that made Lyrian's crystals ring in distress. "Peace? Your people's healing magic will bring good prices in the slave markets. Your ship's crystal technology will upgrade our fleet. You have 5 minutes to surrender, or we will take what we want from your wreckage." The transmission ended. Lyrian looked around her command center at the other Zephyrians. Their crystalline faces showed the same fear she felt. They had hoped to never face something like this. "Captain," Talon said quietly, "what do we do?" Lyrian closed her eyes and thought. Her people had protocols for this situation, but she had never believed they would need them. "Send out a distress call on all emergency frequencies. Tell anyone who receives it that we are civilians under attack. Ask for help, but Captain," another officer said. "Who would come? We are far from any major trade routes. Most species would not risk a war fleet to save strangers." "Someone might," Lyrian said, though she did not really believe it. "We have to try." Talon began broadcasting their message across space. His harmonics carried the desperation they all felt. "This is the Zephyrian refugee ship Gentle Current. We are under attack by Korthak raiders. We are civilians with no military capability. If anyone receives this message, please help us. We have 4 million souls aboard, including children. Please, someone help us." The message went out on every frequency, repeated over and over as the Korthak ships moved closer. Lyrian watched the tactical display and saw their death approaching. In 4 minutes, Korthak boarding ships would cut through their hull. Her people would be dragged away in chains. The first Korthak weapons fired warning shots past their bow. Lyrian felt the Gentle Current shudder as the energy blast passed close to their shields. "Any response to our distress call?" she asked. "Nothing, Captain," Talon replied sadly. "We are alone." Lyrian nodded. She had expected as much. No one wanted to fight 47 Korthak warships to save strangers. It was not logical. It was not smart. Most species would calculate the odds and stay away. The Korthak began their boarding approach. Lyrian prepared to give the surrender order when Talon suddenly straightened at his station. "Captain, I am receiving a response to our distress call." "What, from who?" Talon's crystals flickered with confusion. "The signature identifies them as humans. I am not familiar with this species. They say they are 5 light minutes away and approaching at maximum speed." Lyrian had never heard of humans either. "How many ships?" "They report 5 vessels, Captain. 5 ships against 47. Lyrian felt her hope die as quickly as it had been born. "Tell them to stay away. This is not their fight. They will only die with us." But Talon was already shaking his crystalline head. "Captain, their response is unusual. They say, and I quote, negative. We do not abandon civilians. Hold on. Help is coming." Lyrian stared at her communications officer. What kind of species would risk 5 ships against an entire Korthak fleet for strangers? It made no sense. But somewhere in the darkness of space, someone was coming to help them. She turned to the tactical display, watching as the Korthak boarding ships prepared to dock with their hull. Maybe these humans would arrive in time. Maybe they had some secret weapon that could defeat the raiders. Or maybe they would simply die alongside the Zephyrians. But at least they would not die alone. "All stations prepare for boarding," Lyrian ordered, "and monitor for those human ships. I want to know the moment they arrive." The Gentle Current waited in the darkness, surrounded by enemies but no longer completely alone. Somewhere out there, 5 ships were racing toward certain death to help strangers they had never met. Lyrian did not understand it, but she was grateful. 23 more human ships tore out of hyperspace like angry hornets. They were not all military vessels. Captain Lyrian could see cargo haulers, exploration ships, and even what looked like a passenger liner among them. But they all flew toward the battle with the same deadly purpose. The lead ship was the heavy cruiser Righteous Fury. Its captain, Maria Santos, opened communications immediately. "This is Captain Santos of the Second Fleet. Chen, are you still alive over there?" Captain Chen's voice came back weak but determined from the powerless Retribution's edge. "Still breathing, Santos. But my ship is dead. The refugees are in the center of the Korthak formation. Copy that. We will get you out." Santos turned to her tactical officer. "Show me what we are dealing with." 38 Korthak ships remaining, the officer reported. "They have taken some damage, but they still have us outnumbered. And Captain, our ships are not all military. Half of this fleet is civilian vessels that answered your distress call." Santos nodded. When Chen's beacon had reached human space, every ship captain who could fight had volunteered to come. Merchants, explorers, colonists. They had all dropped what they were doing to save strangers. General Vexitar watched the new human fleet approach and felt his confidence return. Yes, they had more ships now, but most were clearly not warships. His remaining battleships could handle them easily. All vessels, Vexitar ordered. Destroy the human fleet. Show them what happens when they interfere with the Dominion. The Korthak ships turned away from the gentle current to face the new threat. Vexitar expected the humans to form a battle line and fight properly. Instead, they scattered in all directions and attacked from every angle at once. The cargo ship Hardluck flew straight at a Korthak cruiser. Its captain, an old trader named Murphy, had loaded his cargo holds with explosives before jumping to the battle. "Murphy to all ships," he called out cheerfully. "I always wanted to go out with a bang. See you in hell, you Korthak bastards." The Hardluck rammed the enemy cruiser and exploded with enough force to crack the larger ship in half. The Korthaks had never seen anything like it. Cargo ships did not ram warships. It was suicide, but the humans seemed to have different ideas about suicide. The passenger liner Star Princess had evacuated all its passengers before jumping to the battle. Now it used its large size to shield smaller human ships from Korthak weapons. Captain Patel knew his ship could not fight, but it could take damage that would destroy the military vessels. "All fighters, use us as cover," Patel ordered as enemy fire tore through his ship's hull. "We can take it." Marine Sergeant Marcus Rivera had managed to get his assault shuttle launched from the dying Retribution's edge before it went dark. Now he flew through the battle looking for a way to help. He saw a damaged Korthak frigate and made a decision that would have seemed insane to any other species. "Rivera to Fleet Command. I'm going to board that frigate and disable it from the inside." "Negative, Rivera," Santos replied. "That is a suicide mission." "Then I better make it count," Rivera said, and flew his small shuttle directly at the enemy ship. The Korthaks had shields designed to stop large weapons. They were not designed to stop a single small craft flown by someone with no regard for his own safety. Rivera's shuttle punched through their defenses and crashed into their hangar bay. 15 minutes later, the frigate's weapons went silent. Rivera had fought his way to the ship's main reactor and overloaded it. The frigate drifted dead in space, another casualty of human determination. On the gentle current, the Zephyrians watched the battle with growing amazement. Every time a human ship was destroyed, the others fought harder. When they lost weapons, they used their ships as weapons. When they lost shields, they protected each other with their own hulls. "I do not understand," Teln whispered to his captain. "They are not even protecting their own people. We are strangers to them. Why do they sacrifice themselves for us?" Lyrian watched a human destroyer die protecting the refugee ship, and felt something change in her crystalline heart. "Because they chose to," she said quietly. "They chose to make us their responsibility." The battle raged for 2 hours. The humans lost ship after ship, but they never retreated. They adapted their tactics constantly, using debris fields as cover and turning damaged vessels into guided missiles. The Korthaks, used to fighting enemies who valued self-preservation, found themselves facing people who treated their own lives as acceptable losses. Captain Santos watched her fleet die around her and felt no regret. This was what humans did. When someone needed help, they helped. When someone was in danger, they protected them. It did not matter if the people were strangers or aliens or enemies. It was simply who they were, but the math was still against them. For every Korthak ship they destroyed, they lost 2 of their own. Soon there would be none left. That was when the Zephyrians surprised everyone. First Harmony. Teln looked at his captain with determination. "Captain, request permission to use our harmonic weapons." Lyrian stared at him. "Teln, we have never used our abilities as weapons before. It goes against everything we believe." "These humans are dying for us," Teln replied. "How can we let them die while we do nothing? They chose to protect us. Now we must choose to help them." Lyrian thought about Captain Chen, who had smiled in the face of impossible odds. About Captain Williams, who had rammed his ship into an enemy battleship. About all the humans who had answered their call for help when no one else would. "Do it," she ordered. The gentle current began to sing. The Zephyrians focused their natural harmonic abilities into a weapon they had never used before. The sound waves, precisely tuned, passed through the hulls of the Korthak ships and interfered with their electronics. Suddenly, half the Korthak fleet found their weapon systems failing. Their communications went down. Their targeting computers stopped working. The humans did not waste the opportunity. The remaining ships of the Second Fleet pressed their attack with renewed fury. Captain Santos smiled as she watched Korthak ships drift helplessly while her people picked them apart. "Zephyrian vessel," she called out. "That was beautiful. Want to help us finish this?" For the first time in their history, the Zephyrians went to war, and they discovered that sometimes survival required more than just staying alive. It required choosing to fight for others. The battle was turning, but it was not over. General Vextar, his command ship badly damaged, rallied his remaining forces. 18 Korthak vessels still outnumbered the combined human and Zephyrian ships. But something had changed in the last hour. The Korthaks were no longer fighting helpless civilians. They were fighting an enemy that refused to give up. Captain Santos coordinated the attack from the bridge of the Righteous Fury. Her ship had taken heavy damage, but her crew worked with the desperate efficiency of people who knew they were humanity's last hope in this system. "Status report," she called out as another Korthak missile exploded near their hull. "We have 14 ships still combat capable," her tactical officer reported. "But most are running on emergency power. The Starlight Express lost all weapons. The New Boston is venting atmosphere." Santos nodded grimly. They had fought hard, but the math was still against them. Then her communications officer looked up with surprise. "Captain, I am receiving multiple hyperspace signatures, big ones, coming in fast." Space twisted again at the edge of the system, but this time it was not more human ships that emerged. It was something much larger. The TFS Independence materialized first, followed by her sister ships. These were not patrol vessels or converted cargo haulers. They were ships of the line, battleships and carriers that formed the backbone of the Terran Federation Navy. Behind them came cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels. A full battle fleet. Admiral Rebecca Harrison stood on the bridge of the Independence, studying the tactical display. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes, but her presence filled the command center. Around her, hundreds of crew members worked with the smooth precision of a military unit that had trained together for years. "Admiral," her flag captain, reported, "we have 18 human ships still fighting, 1 Zephyrian refugee vessel, and 31 hostile Korthak ships. The humans have been holding for almost 3 hours." Harrison nodded. When the distress calls had reached Federation space, she had assembled the fastest ships available and jumped immediately. But she had expected to arrive to find wreckage, not an active battle. "Signal all human vessels," she ordered. "Tell them the cavalry has arrived." Captain Santos felt tears in her eyes when she heard the Admiral's voice over the communications channel. "This is Admiral Harrison of Battle Group 7. Sorry we are late to the party. What do you need?" "Just help us finish this, Admiral," Santos replied. "These Korthak bastards picked the wrong civilians to attack." Harrison studied the tactical display and smiled coldly. The Korthaks were spread out, trying to deal with multiple human attacks from different directions. They were off balance and confused. Perfect for what she had in mind. "All ships," Harrison ordered. "Form up for a coordinated strike. Let me show you how the Federation Navy handles raiders." General Vextar watched 57 human warships arrange themselves in perfect formation and felt his blood turn cold. These were not desperate patrol ships or converted merchants. These were professional military vessels commanded by people who knew exactly what they were doing. "Sir," his weapons officer said nervously, "perhaps we should withdraw. We have lost many ships, and these new human forces." "No," Vextar snarled. "We are Korthak. We do not run from prey species." But even as he spoke, Vextar knew they were no longer the hunters. Somehow, in the space of a few hours, they had become the hunted. The Federation fleet attacked with mechanical precision. Unlike the desperate charges of the earlier human ships, this was coordinated warfare at its finest. The battleships provided covering fire while destroyers and cruisers moved to flank the Korthak formation. But what impressed Admiral Harrison most was not her own fleet's performance. It was watching the survivors of the earlier battle continue to fight alongside them. Ships that should have retreated for repairs stayed in the battle line. Crews that had been fighting for hours found new energy when they saw reinforcements arrive. Captain Chen, her ship dead but her crew alive, had been picked up by the Star Princess. Now she stood on that ship's bridge, coordinating rescue operations for other disabled vessels. "Admiral," Chen called over the communications net. "We have people scattered across the battlefield. Some are in life pods, some are aboard damaged ships that cannot maneuver. We will get them," Harrison promised. "No one gets left behind." The phrase echoed across the human fleet. No one gets left behind. It was more than a tactical doctrine. It was a promise. A statement of who humans were and what they believed. Marine Sergeant Rivera had somehow survived the destruction of the Korthak frigate he had boarded. His assault shuttle was gone, but he had managed to reach an escape pod. Now he drifted in space, watching capital ships battle around him. "Rivera, to any human vessel," he called over his emergency beacon. "I am in pod 17. Coordinates follows. I have intel on Korthak ship designs if anyone wants to pick me up." The destroyer Vigilant altered course immediately. "Rivera, this is Captain Kim. We are coming for you. Hold tight." "Not going anywhere, Captain," Rivera replied cheerfully. Even facing death in the vacuum of space, he sounded like he was enjoying himself. That was when the Zephyrians understood something profound about humans. They did not just fight together. They protected each other. They rescued each other. They treated every human life as precious, even in the middle of a battle where they were willing to die for strangers. Captain Lyrian watched rescue shuttles race through weapons fire to pick up human survivors and felt her crystalline heart change. These people had created bonds that went beyond species, beyond logic, beyond self-interest. They had chosen to make everyone their family. "Captain," Teln said quietly, "the humans are extending their rescue operations to include us." Lyrian looked at her tactical display. Human ships were indeed moving to assist Zephyrian civilians who had been injured when their ship was hit. Medical shuttles were requesting permission to dock and offer aid. "They are treating us like we are their own people," she whispered. The battle ended 20 minutes later. The remaining Korthak ships, faced with impossible odds, finally broke and ran. General Vextar's command ship was the last to retreat, limping away on damaged engines. As the enemy fleet disappeared into hyperspace, Admiral Harrison opened a channel to all ships. "This is Admiral Harrison. The battle is over. All vessels, begin search and rescue operations. Every ship, every pod, every survivor. We bring everyone home." The aftermath of the battle was unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever seen. Human ships that had been trying to kill each other's enemies minutes before now worked together to save lives. Military vessels and civilian ships coordinated rescue efforts without regard for rank or species. Captain Santos, her ship barely functional, refused evacuation until all her crew were safe. Captain Chen organized medical teams to treat wounded Zephyrians alongside human casualties. Throughout the fleet, the same pattern repeated, humans taking care of each other and anyone else who needed help. Dr. Lisa Park from the medical ship Mercy worked in the Gentle Current sick bay, treating Zephyrian civilians with the same care she would give to human patients. The crystalline beings were amazed by her dedication. "Why do you help us?" asked one injured Zephyrian. "We are not your people." Dr. Park looked up from her patient and smiled. "You called for help. We answered. That makes you our people now." Admiral Harrison stood on her bridge watching the rescue operations and thinking about what had happened here. 43 human ships had been destroyed or badly damaged. Hundreds of her people were dead. But 4 million Zephyrian refugees were alive because humans had decided their lives mattered. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we are receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They want to know what happened here." Harrison considered her response carefully. This battle would be humanity's introduction to galactic politics. How they explained themselves now would determine how other species saw them for generations. "Tell them," she said finally, "that someone called for help, and we answered. Nothing more complicated than that." But she knew it was more complicated. What had happened here was proof that humans were different. They formed bonds not just with their own species but with anyone they chose to protect. They adopted strangers as family and died for people they had never met. The galaxy was about to learn what it meant when humans decided you belonged to their pack. and for the Zephyrians floating safe in their ship surrounded by human rescuers, that was the most beautiful sound they had ever heard. The Galactic Council chambers had never been so quiet. Representatives from hundreds of species sat in stunned silence as they reviewed the battle reports from the Outer Rim. What they were reading challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare, survival, and civilization itself. Counselor Thex of the Altarian Republic read the report for the third time. "Are we certain these numbers are correct? 47 human ships attacked a Korthak fleet of similar size to rescue complete strangers? The data has been verified by 17 independent sources," replied the Council's military analyst, a Vikoran named Kel-9, including sensor logs from both Korthak survivors and the Zephyrian refugees. The humans suffered an 83% casualty rate, but continued fighting until reinforcements arrived. Counselor Mavis of the Hegemony States shook her four arms in disbelief. This makes no strategic sense. The humans had no trade agreements with the Zephyrians, no mutual defense pacts, no economic interests at stake. They simply helped. "It appears so," Kel-9 confirmed. When questioned, Admiral Harrison stated that the humans responded because, and I quote, "Someone called for help and we answered." A murmur ran through the chamber. Most galactic species had formal protocols for this sort of thing. Cost-benefit analyses, risk assessments, committee meetings. No one just rushed into battle to save strangers. Counselor Thex leaned forward. "What do we know about these humans? Are they seeking to establish a military presence in that region?" "Intelligence reports suggest otherwise," Kel-9 replied. "After the battle, the human fleet provided medical aid to all survivors, conducted search and rescue operations, and then withdrew to the edge of the system. They made no territorial claims and asked for nothing in return." "Nothing?" "The Zephyrians offered to share their crystal technology as payment for the rescue. The humans declined. They said saving lives was not a transaction." Another silence fell over the chamber. In the civilized galaxy, everything was a transaction. Resources, knowledge, territory, lives, all were commodities to be traded. The idea of giving without expecting return was almost incomprehensible. Counselor Nex of the Trade Federation spoke up. "Perhaps this is some elaborate deception, a way to gain the Zephyrians' trust before exploiting them." "That was our initial assessment as well," Kel-9 said. "However, further investigation reveals a pattern of similar behavior throughout human space. Medical ships providing free aid to plague victims, rescue vessels responding to distress calls regardless of species, military forces defending civilian targets even when tactically disadvantageous. They do this regularly. It appears to be standard human doctrine. They call it the humanitarian mandate, a principle that all sapient life has value and deserves protection." Counselor Thex felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. A species that valued all life equally was either incredibly naive or incredibly dangerous. "What is the status of the Korthak Dominion?" "General Vextar has issued a statement declaring the humans to be unnatural predators and has placed a bounty on human ships. However, Dominion forces have been avoiding human patrol routes since the battle." "They are afraid," Counselor Mavis observed. "Apparently so. The Korthak military doctrine is based on attacking the weak and avoiding equal fights. The humans have demonstrated they will turn any fight into an equal one by sheer force of will." In the depths of space, word of the battle spread through unofficial channels. On the slave world of Caraxus Prime, Tylonian workers whispered about the Deathworlders who had saved the Zephyrians. In the mining colonies of the Outer Ring, oppressed species began to hope that someone might answer their cries for help too. The Velkin shipping syndicate issued new orders to all their vessels. "If you encounter humans, cooperate fully. Do not threaten them. Do not attack their allies." The Velkins had built their empire on calculating odds and avoiding risks. Fighting humans was now classified as an unacceptable risk. On the garden world of Nexus Prime, the Ethereal Council held an emergency session. As one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, they considered themselves above the crude emotions that drove lesser species, but the human behavior troubled them. "They fought for strangers," Elder Silas noted. "Not for profit, not for territory, not for resources. They fought because they believed it was correct to do so. Dangerous thinking, Elder Mira replied. If such attitudes spread, it could destabilize the entire galactic order. Species might begin to expect help rather than purchasing it. More concerning is their effectiveness, Silas continued. They turned a hopeless battle into a victory through pure determination. They treated acceptable losses as if there were no such thing. What do you recommend? Caution. The humans appear to be genuinely altruistic, which makes them unpredictable. We should avoid antagonizing them while we study their motivations. Meanwhile, aboard the Gentle Current, Captain Lyrian met with Admiral Harrison in what humans called a diplomatic dinner. The human admiral sat at a crystal table that hummed with Zephyrian music, eating food prepared by beings who had spent their lives avoiding conflict. Admiral, Lyrian said, her crystalline form glowing with curiosity. I must ask something that troubles my people. Why did you come? We offered you nothing. We could give you nothing. Why did humans die for us? Harrison set down her fork and considered the question. She was a military officer, trained to think in terms of strategy and objectives. But the honest answer had nothing to do with military doctrine. Because you asked, she said simply. Because you needed help and we could provide it. Because leaving you to die would have been wrong. But the cost was acceptable, Harrison finished. Captain Lyrian, humans come from a world that tried to kill us for millions of years. We learned that survival meant protecting each other. When we went to the stars, we brought that instinct with us. Lyrian's crystals shifted to a deep blue color that indicated deep thought. Other species say we are naive to trust you, that humans must want something in return. We do want something, Harrison admitted. What? For you to be safe. For your people to have a chance to build new lives. For the galaxy to be a place where calling for help means someone will answer. Harrison smiled. I suppose that is our price. We want to live in a universe where doing the right thing matters. 6 months later, the Zephyrian colony of New Haven was thriving under the protection of a joint human-Zephyrian defense force. The first generation of Zephyrian children born on the New World learned human songs alongside their own harmonic traditions. They grew up believing that help would always come to those who needed it. The lesson spread. When the plague ships reached the Carillion system, human medical vessels were already waiting. When Dominion raiders attacked the Tessic trade routes, human patrol ships appeared to drive them off. When slavers hit the refugee camps in the Beta sector, human marines were there to stop them. Each rescue created new allies. Each act of protection demonstrated that the humans meant what they said. Slowly, carefully, other species began to believe that maybe the galaxy could be different. In the council chambers, Councillor Thex reviewed the quarterly reports on human activity. Medical aid to 47 systems. Rescue operations in 12 sectors. Protection provided to 19 species, all without payment or territorial concessions. They are expanding their influence rapidly, he noted to his aide. Yes, Counselor, but they are not claiming territory or imposing governments. They simply help, then leave. Which makes them more influential, not less, Thex mused. Fear keeps enemies in line, but gratitude builds loyalty that lasts for generations. The aide nodded. The Zephyrians have begun calling them the Guardians. Other rescued species use similar terms. The humans are becoming something like Galactic Protectors. And they chose this role themselves, Thex said. No one elected them. No treaty authorized them. They simply decided that protecting others was their responsibility. On Earth, in a small memorial garden outside Terran Fleet Command, a new monument had been erected. It bore the names of all the humans who had died in the Zephyrian rescue, as the historians were calling it. At the base of the monument was a simple inscription. They heard the cry for help. They answered. They did not come home, but they showed the galaxy what it means to be human. Every day new names were added to similar monuments throughout human space. Names of people who had died protecting strangers, defending the helpless, answering calls for aid from across the galaxy. The humans called them heroes. The galaxy was beginning to call them something else. Hope, because in a universe full of darkness, violence, and despair, someone had answered when the Zephyrians cried for help. And that meant that maybe, just maybe, someone would answer the next cry too. The Deathworlders had responded, and the galaxy would never be the same.